$500 million. That's what it cost Steven Rales just to get his foot in the door. And what he got in return wasn't just a stake in one of the most valuable sports properties in America. It was a legal agreement that could hand him full control of the Indiana Fever the moment Herb Simon decides he's done. Most Fever fans have never heard Steven Rales' name. That's about to change. Rales is a 72-year-old billionaire worth nearly $9 billion, and right now, he holds the clearest path to owning the franchise that Caitlin Clark just turned into a global phenomenon. There is a succession structure already on paper. Herb Simon is 90 years old, and the math here is not subtle. If this is the kind of story you want more of, the deals, the power moves, the ownership dynamics nobody else is covering, hit that like button right now. It helps us keep digging into exactly this. To understand why this matters so much, you have to understand what Herb Simon built and how many times it nearly didn't survive. Herb Simon was born in Brooklyn in 1934. No inheritance, no head start. He and his brother Mel built Simon Property Group from scratch, buying land, developing malls, expanding across the country, one deal at a time. By 1983, they were successful, but nowhere near the billionaires they would eventually become. That year, the Indiana Pacers were hemorrhaging money. Ownership was desperate to sell. There were real, quiet conversations about the team leaving Indianapolis entirely. Herb Simon stepped in and bought the Pacers for $11 million, a number that looked risky at the time and looks almost fictional today. Then came 1999. The WNBA was awarding new franchises, and each city had to prove demand first, 5,500 season ticket commitments before the league would say yes. Indianapolis wanted in. But selling thousands of tickets for a brand new women's professional league in a market that had never seen it was a serious ask. Herb Simon didn't delegate that job. He personally sold 4,500 of those tickets himself. 82% of the required threshold. One man. The Indiana Fever were born, and the early years were brutal. 9-23 in their first season, near empty arenas. And by 2009, the message inside the organization was blunt: succeed on the court and at the box office, or the franchise's future in Indianapolis is not guaranteed. That is how close it came to ending. What saved them was Tamika Catchings, 5-time Defensive Player of the Year, League MVP in 2011, and the kind of player a franchise is built around for a generation. In 2012, Catchings led the Fever to their only WNBA championship. Herb Simon was there, the owner who had kept the lights on through all of it, watching his team celebrate on that floor. Then Catchings retired in 2016, and the franchise collapsed, 5-31 in 2022. Some games drew just a few thousand fans. Herb Simon was in his late 80s. His son Steven Simon had taken on more operational responsibility. The team was an afterthought in its own city. And then April 15, 2024 happened. The Indiana Fever selected Caitlin Clark first overall. What followed redefined what a WNBA franchise could be. Road teams moved their home games to bigger venues just to accommodate the crowds coming to see her. The Fever averaged the highest attendance in WNBA history. Television ratings hit records that hadn't been touched in 20 years. A $2.2 billion media rights deal reshaped the entire league's economics. A team that had been playing to a few thousand fans went national, then global, in a single season. Herb Simon, at 90 years old, had held this franchise together through 5-31 seasons and lived to see it become one of the most watched sports properties in America. But here's the question nobody is asking out loud. He is 90 years old. He recently retired from Simon Property Group after 65 years. Steven Simon handles most day-to-day operations for Pacers Sports and Entertainment. Herb has stepped back, which means the question of what comes next is not hypothetical. It is already in motion. Before we get into exactly how Rales has positioned himself, drop a comment below. Do you think new ownership would continue building what Herb Simon started, or does a change at the top always redirect a franchise? Let us know where you stand. Steven Rales grew up right here in Indiana. He graduated from DePaul University in Greencastle before going on to co-found Danaher Corporation, a company that started as a small investment vehicle in the 1980s and became a global science and technology conglomerate worth over $200 billion today. His method was not complicated. Find assets with real underlying value that haven't been fully unlocked. Buy in early. Build infrastructure. Think in decades, not quarters. He had already quietly acquired 5% of Pacers Sports and Entertainment before anyone publicly reported it. Then, in late 2023, he purchased another 15%, paying over $500 million total for a 20% stake at a franchise valuation of $3.47 billion. Herb Simon welcomed him publicly, calling him a good friend with strong Hoosier ties. But the deal, first reported by Sportico, contained a detail that changes the entire picture. The agreement includes a possible path to control for Rales should the Simon family ever choose to sell. That is not a passive investment. That is a legal foothold, the kind of position a man takes when he is thinking about the next chapter, not just the one he is in right now. And here is what that foothold is worth today. When Rales bought in during late 2023, the Fever were valued at roughly $90 million, and Caitlin Clark had not been drafted yet. Sportico's most recent estimates now put the Fever at over $300 million. The franchise has more than tripled in value in roughly 18 months. Expansion franchises in Portland and Toronto just paid $250 million each to join the league. The asset Rales has a path to control has appreciated dramatically, and by most indicators, it is not close to its ceiling. What would Rales' ownership actually look like? You can start to understand it by watching how he already operates inside the organization. Last June, he flew the entire Pacers Sports and Entertainment staff, not just players, not just executives, but every employee, on a charter to Oklahoma City for the NBA Finals. That is a gesture that costs serious money and builds the kind of loyalty that changes how an organization functions at every level. More importantly, Danaher's entire growth model was built on identifying undervalued assets and scaling them through aggressive long-term investment. The Indiana Fever fit that profile almost perfectly right now. Explosive brand growth, a generational player at the center of it, and infrastructure that is still catching up to the moment. The franchise's dedicated practice facility does not even open until 2027. That gap between potential and infrastructure is exactly the kind of opportunity a Danaher-style operator looks for. Real quick. If this depth of analysis is what keeps you coming back, consider joining the channel as a member. Your support is what makes it possible to keep digging into the stories nobody else is covering. Herb Simon's will reportedly includes provisions to keep the franchise in Indianapolis. He built this team on loyalty and love for the city, and that is real. But loyalty and vision do not always point in the same direction, and the man who built a $200 billion company by finding undervalued assets and scaling them aggressively is already inside the building with a legal path forward. Caitlin Clark returns healthy in 2026. A new CBA is being negotiated right now that will reshape every player contract and revenue structure in the league. The WNBA is sitting at the same inflection point the NBA sat at in the early 90s, right before it became a global cultural institution, and the man with the clearest path to owning its centerpiece franchise already paid $500 million for the right to be first in line. The next chapter of the Indiana Fever is not a rumor. It is a structured legal agreement waiting on one decision from one 90-year-old man. Steven Rales is not chasing this franchise. He is already inside it, holding the key. If you want to be here when that door opens, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Do not let the algorithm bury it. And coming up next, we are going deep on what the new CBA negotiations could mean for Caitlin Clark's contract, and why the number reportedly being discussed might genuinely surprise you. See you there.